architecture is amazing, for sure. It's amazing because it's art.
Architecture, unlike all the other things, is not a kind of a lonely profession.
How much does an architect make?
Roll 'em. Action.
Thank you very much, Mape, for sponsoring us. Thank you very much, PAM Southern Chapter, for organizing this event. And then the thing is actually, good morning to all the fellow architects. I think just before I start to explain my background, I would like to make this statement. I think there are still a lot of senior architects in Southern region. We just happen to be the person requested by Farid to join this session of sharing. So we still got a lot to learn in our way. Whatever that we are going to talk today will by no means undermine any experience for our much more senior architects in Southern region. Okay, as for my background, I have actually done my fair share of architecture training in Australia, University of Newcastle, and I graduated in the year 1990. And then I'm actually originally from Kuala Lumpur, so I actually worked in KL for a couple of years. And subsequent to that, I transferred down to Johor Bahru and joined Architect Negara for another couple of years. The more significant event was actually I was actually appointed to be the resident architect in one of the high-rise projects in Johor Bahru, Wadihana, if all of you know the project. So subsequent to that, I founded JYP Architects in the year 1994. So that was the time where we were young and aggressive, and the office and the story actually carry on from there. So that's basically how we are. And the thing is, actually, we have been through quite a few rounds of slowdown and recession. So we have been together with Architect Slamat for throughout this period. So I'll leave it to Architect Slamat to explain himself on his position.
Okay. Thank you, Hong Ling. Good morning to all. My name is Slamat bin Muhammad Lahir. My colleagues, I got my my education background is a long journey because it break into two, and in between I worked. Okay, I got my first so-called what you call it diploma in architecture from MARA, by Institute of Technology MARA. That is on 1988. And before I further my study in Australia, I worked in Singapore for 2 years, partly because Malaysia during that time is recession. Subsequent after that, I further my study at the University of New South Wales, and I got my degree and came back to Singapore and working with James Yip and partner, and that's where I met my so-called my sifu, Mr. Ng Hong Ling. My journey is a bit long because of the recession in between 1998. That is from 1995 to 1998, where when I graduated in the diploma, it's very hard to get job, and I have to seek opportunity in other country, which is Singapore. Okay, there's a bit of my background in education.
All right. Okay, thank you, Slamat. Thank you, Hong Ling. Okay, for those participants, I think for those for the information, before this COVID-19, we actually had a 3 recession before this. For 1998, 1995, and 96 is actually called commodities shock. I think this one mostly maybe we are either in school or we are maybe some of you are not born yet. So I think this is affecting a lot of people. Then we have a very big one, Asian financial crisis, 1997 and 1998. I think we have quite a significant also in the 2008-2009, which is a global financial crisis. The one is subprime. So I think each of these are actually of a different nature, and it affected our profession differently. So maybe can both of you share what is your experience in handling each of these cases in a nutshell before we go to a detailed question. So I think we just keep it very, very casual. I think maybe I start with Slamat first on the experiences of all this recession. It seems that you have a lot of story to tell.
Okay, my colleagues, when I graduated diploma in architecture, that is when it happened in 1988. Actually, Malaysia economy during that time, a lot of construction happening because of Commonwealth, a lot of project in KL. However, not many architects benefit of these so-called Commonwealth projects. Because of the crisis in 1985, what we call is US so-called Volcker shocks, due of so-called high interest rate, a lot of so-called fund repatriate back to US, and as a result, there's a short of liquidity in the market, and due of that, a lot of project is served. So when I so-called graduated, that is 88, just after the Commonwealth Games, practically there's no job in the market. I wrote about 50, I remember 50 application in Malaysia, none reply. So because of desperate to look for job, I ventured to Singapore. I wrote a few letters and they reply immediately. That's where I go back to Singapore to start works. But prior to that, when I in university, so-called we do a training. We can see a lot of this so-called what I call this pay cut, downsizes happening in the so-called practice. In fact, during this time, this happened in 1985 when I tried to apply for interns. Also very difficult. Okay, so meanings are whether fortunate or not fortunate, that time we don't really need so-called income. We rely on our parent to support our living. But what we see here, the so-called the architecture profession and other sector related to building industry is very volatile to the economy.
All right. Okay. Maybe we have some quick view from architect Ng Hong Leng.
Yeah. Actually, I started off, or rather in 1985, commodity shock. At that moment of time, we were all still in university, so we really do not understand what are actually the event that is going on. Though we don't understand very much then, because at that moment of time, we were fully supported by the parents. So it's only during the time when we have an opportunity to come back to Malaysia during the holidays, then we are applying for internship, and we keep grumbling, why is the company who engaging us not paying us any allowances? So that was about all that we understood at that moment of time. So the thing is, we keep hearing the bosses keep saying that, oh, collection is very low and there is no income for the month, everybody has to go through pay cut. That is about all. After the practical training, we go back to study. So basically, that was the image that we received during the big downturn in 1985. However, the situation has changed quite substantially. JYP was actually formed in 1994. So at that moment of time, oh, by the way, JYP stands for James Hill and Partners. We were originally from Singapore. That's where architect Slamet worked, and that's where I met him. I actually formed the company in Malaysia on behalf of JYP Architects. So on the James Hill and Partners. So we use the abbreviation of JYP. So at that moment of time, we were very aggressive. In 1994, we experienced very good upturn, and the market was really good. And at that moment of time, the company enjoys a good referral of projects, and mostly very big projects, residential project, offices projects, all high-rise, and all are quite sizable projects from our head office. So the reason is actually at that moment of time, during the boom, the overseas developer, particularly from Singapore, they are actually more familiar in this kind of building typology. At least 80% of the project in the office are of this nature. So the thing is actually at that moment of time, I can recall that we become very ambitious, and we were over the cloud, and we actually become very selective on work that we were supposed to do. So that was actually in 1994. So when financial crisis actually landed in Malaysia, 1997, I can recall that actually our finance minister at that moment was actually Anwar Ibrahim, if I'm not wrong, keep telling us that actually the fundamental was good, Malaysia fundamental was good, that at that time Asian financial crisis already landed in Thailand, so we have been reassured that our situations will not be as bad as our neighboring country. So life go on, and then when the physical financial crisis hit Malaysia, the real time, so the practically the whole office, 80% of the projects in whole office just stopped overnight. So the thing is actually the project just died, and I can recall that actually during the period of time, it was after the announcement by the finance minister that there is going to be very strict loan consideration by the bank for property that is above 200,000. So at that moment of time, suddenly all the developers find themselves in a snook position that they could no longer actually implement project of ambitious in its nature. So what happened to the architect firm was actually whatever that we have drawn, beautiful pictures and submissions of drawings, approvals of plans, all has suddenly turned into just beautiful pictures hanging on the wall. So at that moment of time, the overhead for JYP Architects was actually not big because we were heavily relying on the support from our Singapore office. So that is actually a blessing in disguise. However, during the period of time, no matter how small your operation is, what we experienced was actually the fee collections was truly very low. I can recall that actually all the clients has actually decided to delay the payments, and some of them has actually retracted back to their own country. Some even retracted without informing you, so they just left and left you sitting down in the office wondering when is the next dollar going to come to the office. So during the period of time, 1997 was the most critical experience that I personally has encountered. And what we have learned during this period and up to today, we are still wondering and also looking back to the process that we have been through and still wondering how did we manage to get through during this tough period of time. So practically around 6 months, there was very little collections by the office. So during the period of time, we felt and we learned from the experience was actually how important it is to be independent operation within your office. So the reliance technical support from anywhere else, especially overseas, it is good and nice to look at, but it will become very heavy for you to carry as the production cost is very high, especially during the time financial crisis where Malaysian ringgit has actually depreciated tremendously. So that was the time where we felt that actually we may need to actually become self-contained, and we have to build up the office and make sure that actually we are able to function as a full office. So during the period of time also, like I said earlier in our presentation, we experienced a good boom during 1994. That was about the time where we started, and we thought that the day is going to be as good and as rosy as ever. All big jobs come practically every week. We get new projects and we get to draw new perspectives. We get to draw and submit new high-rise plans. So we thought that the life is going to be that good for a long time. So this 1997 financial crisis has actually nailed us down on the ground. That is for sure. So we have to start to learn to suppress our ego, and we need to actually understand that not all mega jobs and high-flying job is going to be implemented to the end of the projects or up to the stage of CCC, and not all the projects that is going to be conceptualized is going to be materialized. So the smaller projects has indeed, at the end of the day, become the lifesaver of our operation, and the practice has actually started to learn to maintain and diversify into projects of a lower size and lower capacity. So that was how we are able to actually play and recruit some of the income during this period of difficult times. Another thing is actually during the period of time, what I realized was actually the confidence and the morale of the practice was greatly shaken. So I think that is more critical to an operation than actually the money matters. So everybody, every day when you go to office, every time when you started work, everybody will tell you all the bad news. And I think that is partly due to the media publications as well as human communications. So I felt that at that moment of time, every day you come to the office, people will tell you, oh, ringgit is already $5 US dollars, so we are going to go down to the drain, you know, that kind of thing. So the psychological aspects towards the staff mental was actually very poor. So instead of concentrating into performing their role in the office, we found that actually the staff confidence levels are very much shaken. at that moment of time. So we have actually, Slamat and myself has actually, we have no choice, even though we were also affected by the negative points. We have no choice but to stand in a very positive manner, and we need to actually keep reassuring the operation that the office will go on, so that they will not need to actually look for new jobs, and that actually explains that the solidarity of the office is actually, to a certain extent, to my opinion, is more important than considering as of how are we going to pay the salary. Of course, the next item was actually the financial reserve of the practice will also play a very important role, and we have to keep assuring the staff that they are going to get paid, and that is the point, that so that to divert their attention into physically doing the work. So all those are actually the negative point that we experienced during the financial crisis. But we do also observe during the period of time some good points. Some good points. I think for those who are practicing in the southern region, you probably will agree with me. We experience a fair bit of outstation or overseas competitions of architecture practice. We have architect firms that open branches in Johor Bahru, and we have overseas firms who cross across the border to come to our state to operate. So this is the time where we experience that there is a lot of, during the bad time, all these officers has chose to retract back to their home ground. So those outstation architecture practice would have retracted back to their original head office, and overseas companies were retracted back overseas. So there is a big vacuum during the period of time for the local developers who is still implementing jobs to look for consultants to replace, or consulting architects to replace the position of the outstation consultants. So that is the time that we felt that the opportunity was open to us, and we were actually given the opportunity to show to the developer in Johor that we are able to perform. So that's how we actually built the portfolio of the clientele slightly stronger. So the second thing, which we again, it marks a very important milestone in our operation, was actually we noticed one very unique phenomena happens in those big conglomerates, overseas conglomerates, you know, especially on the retail aspects and retail building developers. So these are the developers that are actually cash rich, and they will love to expand their building during this downturn, taking advantage of the poor financial crisis, poor financial status, as well as actually limitations of jobs. So they are taking advantage of it, and that is the time that they actually are looking into expansion. So taking on to the opportunity that comes by, we managed to get some experience in doing some slightly larger commercial projects, and that is where that leads us until today. So basically, that was the major experience that we have during the financial crisis in 1997. So I will pass back to our moderator, Architect Farid.
All right, thank you very much. Very informative, Mr. A.R. Hong Leng. I think the interesting about it is that this 2020 and 2021, there are little sharing on how the impact of COVID to architectural practice. So I think if we fast forward 24 years from 1997 that you have enlightened us, I have two series of questions now. Is that how do you compare this COVID experience with the other three recessions that occurs previously? How I mean, if there is a gauge meter, are we below 97 experience, or are we? A lot of people say this is mother of challenges. Yet I think lesser discussion or lesser sharing of information about this COVID issues.
Yeah, that is a good question. Actually, to be honest, I may not have a direct answer to you because we are still in the process of the unprecedented COVID situations at the moment. But what I can derive is actually I can briefly say that actually no one has expected COVID to cause this world, if not Malaysia, this world a mess. So the thing is actually leave alone all the new terminology that has been used and new guideline that has been imposed by the authorities are some of the terminology we have not even heard of through our life. You know, the things like lockdown, you know, that everybody has to stay at home and nobody is supposed to get going out to have a cup of coffee is already a taboo subject that we're talking about during this period of time. So the biggest difference I derive between current crisis, the COVID pandemic versus all the previous recessions that we experienced so far is whatever that has been imposed, the lockdown movement control that has been imposed by the authorities. All activities practically was and forcefully was stopped by the state control. So as an architecture practice, we probably require to function where it is not able to function only by our own. We have to actually function with a team member, not if not within the office, but it actually covers other consultants as well. So theoretically, we practically can't work hard from home. So in 1997, during the financial crisis, we can still tell our staff that we ought to work very hard and do smaller jobs to gain enough income to sustain and stay afloat. But in the beginning of the COVID that we experienced, we were all asked to stay at home, and where Zoom meeting wasn't that common at that moment of time, we are all learning from that period of time. So practically, we can't even work hard from home. And if other team members are not doing the same, if you want to conduct a meeting, the engineers may not be available during that period of time. They may not be that savvy in terms of computer. So that was actually the biggest difference that we experienced in terms of comparing COVID to the recession. So as your question, whether is that going to be the biggest recession that we will experience through our life? So I'm sorry, I don't have the answer for that because we don't know. We haven't seen the bottom yet. It is still going on at the moment.
All right. Okay. Noted on that. Maybe Architect Selamat, you want to chip in a bit?
Selamat, you have to unmute.
Okay, sorry.
Nah.
Okay, this COVID pandemic in our lifetime, we have not come across. I mean, of course, we have gone through a few recessions, but COVID is something is unprecedented. The nearest so-called pandemic happened is 1930s. That's called Spanish flu. And during that time also, there is, I mean, if you Google, you can't find any solution how they're going to manage face so-called this pandemic. Okay, it's a new challenge, and we learn along the so-called this period, and this so-called government regulation and so-called this SOP keep changing. It creates a confuse among the so-called this the practitioner as well as the whole industry, so-called building industry, where it also involves affected the developer, the manufacturer, so-called the building constructions. Okay, so it's something new and something that we have not come across. But for some practice, I heard in Australia where the practice over there, they already practice so-called work from home before the COVID. So they managed to get through the so-called the process much easier than us, where our so-called this internet is lagging, and our communication means is limited. That's why this COVID not only affect the industry, also affect our productivity in work. As Mr. Ng mentioned just now, is a morale of the staff also affected. But this based on this so-called COVID, we don't know how long it's going to so-called affect us, and whether it will prolong for another few months or few years. This is create uncertainty to this industry.
Okay, all right. That's very notable. I like the sharing idea on the. I mean, most of the time we talk about financial, how to survive, how to sustain our business. Yet I think a lot less of a sharing about the moral of the staff. I remember in '97, my firm disallow reading newspaper in the office just to boost up the moral because nothing to do. So there is a circular saying if you read newspaper in the office, you will be disciplined. So I think the moral part of it is very interesting. I mean, there is a challenge for us how to actually boost the moral despite all the confusion. Slamat saying about the SOP, that also I agree. I receive a lot of queries about some office are able to get MITI approval, some office are still struggling to get MITI approval. So these are actually created a lot of discrepancy and inconsistency in building industry. So I think the next sharing question is that this is more specific to Johor practice. Do you think this what do you call it, this impact? Are we in the southern region? Do you think most of us are able to sustain this, or are we? I mean, we look at some office are still doing some work compared to '97, '98. It was so sudden. This one, I think some office are still, I mean, cannot wait to get the MITI approval to have their staff work. So it indicates a confusion signal that do you think the southern region practice, are we ready, or are we bulletproof in the sense? Maybe I start with Slamat first.
I think of course in my opinion, I have not seen any research about how this COVID impact on the so-called southern region. But PAM supposed to do a survey. But in my opinion, I think the so-called southern region is no different from other region, especially in central, in northern and west, so-called East Malaysia. Basically, this COVID first they create a havoc to communication. As a result, many people in terms of communication cause a problem. They cannot produce the work productively, and then the so-called poor our so-called internet, which is 4G now. Certain area, I mean, some people stay in area where they have no coverage, meaning our communication and to our staff or our so-called colleagues is totally cut off. Okay, and some of our so-called staff as well as people involved in this building industry are living in area where outside the district, for example. So because of this imposition of a district, we call this not allowed to cross over, or state, or even country, a lot of people are stranded. They are isolated from the so-called cut off from the chain of so-called connection to other party. So spiritually and emotionally, a lot of these people so-called affected. What I can see, one way of solving this issue for the practice, they have to do what they within their means. Meaning, for example, on schematic design, on so-called this preparation of tender, that's between their control. But those is beyond their control, such as like getting clearance from authority. This is something that we have to address. So for PAM, I think we have to start so-called speak up to so-called this every local government, how to simplify the process At the moment, in fact, now in the so-called every local government, each local government create their own system how to do a submission, and they put a date when they can make a submission. So this is become a further restriction where the industry is badly affected by this COVID.
Okay, all right. I agree with that. I mean, we have a lot of issues with authorities in submission. They do, I think, also work from home. And I have cases where a lot of drawing had to be courier to his house rather than his office because they are working from home. So I think that is the challenges, the what do you call it, we are facing. Maybe Mr. Architect Ong Hong Leng, can you share with us your view of other practices in our friendly friend data from us? Actually, in Southern region, we are mainly a sole proprietor practice. I think that is the majority of the practice. I think of course JYP is a corporate setup, ACP. Maybe you can share, Architect Ong Hong Leng.
Yeah, I think the considerations of how to get out of this issue of COVID that we are experiencing now may be a little bit too early to judge because we really don't know how long will these particular situations will work. So I think the considerations will probably be extended to the approach that most of us will have to do in running an operation is the considering of how long are we able to sustain the operation, where undoubtedly we have to lead ourselves into how much reserve that we need to spare within the operation. So I would like to highlight is actually it has got to do with the nature of our business, where our work, where sometimes during the good time the money could be a lot, during the projects where many projects were implemented. So in a lot of times the officers were actually getting carried away and the money was spent. So the thing is actually I feel that in addressing slowdown period, the accumulations of reserve by the office will play a very important portions in running the office. So I'd like to touch I agree with you that most of the operation in southern regions are sole proprietor or partnership. We were for a good 16 years, we were actually practicing of the same nature. So we were actually JYP Architect then. Subsequently, we decided that we should actually corporatize the company and convert it into Sdn Bhd. So one of the main reasons, this is outside the crisis that we are talking about, one of the main reasons is actually taxation issues. When you were actually on sole proprietor or partnership, your taxation will look in your personal incomes into picture. So as of the corporatization of the company, it will becomes an entity by itself. So it's more clear cut in that nature. So that was the reason why we decided to corporatize the company. I think more than say maybe 7 years ago.
Okay, all right. Thank you, both of you. I think I will move on to the next question. This one, I think a lot of sharing about how to actually take care of our staff, especially like the moral story that you mentioned just now. This one very. Now we look at the left of story shared about how the bosses are coping with the challenges. So I mean, how do you cope and regain strength? I mean, in the tremendous business pressure, or when you are feeling down, how do you basically, pacify yourself with all these economic challenges? Maybe Architect Hong Leng first.
You see, in any operation, you can't avoid where staff were affected by the situations that they are facing during the crisis. So all of them will be communicating and wondering what will be the situations, how will be their livelihood be affected. So the thing is actually what is more important is, as a leader of the operation, you need to stay positive, and you need to actually reserve sufficient fund to carry throughout the whole period of time. And then you have to keep encouraging the staff on their position, and make sure that actually they perform the normal role that they are expected to perform during this crisis period. So I personally believe that actually whatever crisis that we are experiencing, it will get by after a certain period of time. It's a matter of how long only we will need to withhold actually.
All right. Okay. Thank you on that. Architect Slamet.
Okay, I think the so-called everybody have their own so-called this problem facing this with the COVID. The main one actually, I believe, is the health issue, safety issue, because this COVID, they even though some of the people have received immunization, but the COVID keep mutating, meaning there's new variant, new so-called we don't know how they transmit and how they affect our health. So to be safe facing of this so-called pressure of working from home, okay, we have to provide them with so-called instrument, how to communicate and how to so-called keep contact with the office, okay, and we also help them to so-called get vaccinated. In fact, almost 90% of our staff already have a vaccination. Only left few people, okay, and because of so-called this, we managed to get vaccinations, and we have so-called approval from media. Those people that have difficulty to work from home, especially those who are, especially the ladies, where they have a family, and when they work in home, the productivity come down. We allow them to coming back, and at the same time also they feel more safer working in the office rather than at home, because the environment is controlled. And on financial aspect, I agree with Mr. Ng mentioned about the we have to give them assurance that we can pay every month their salary, and that will eliminate their worries on performing the works. And one thing good during this COVID period, we have plenty of time actually. I mean, in terms of working, of course, we can work from home, but because of there's no constructions at the site, there's no so-called this very limited to go to authority and to see clients. We have plenty of family bonding time, and we also have our me time. In fact, we can contact a lot of our old friends that we have not in touch for a long time. So this gives another so-called good for during this COVID period.
On that, Slamet, I share the similar thing. I have a client who say now architect can rest. Last time we always pressure with 1 day, 2 day deadline. Now they say you got plenty of time to to rest at home. So okay, so I think that's my part for the sharing of the previous challenges in this recession time. So I think I will pass down to the younger architect. I think to ask question. Architect PAMSo is actually, for your information, a very young architect. We devised this question to represent two groups. Previously, my question are all about the one that we also experience in the same challenges. So I think the next sets of questions will be from the generation of youth architect on trying to learn how to share these experiences. So I pass down the moderator to the second moderator.
Okay, thank you, Architect Farid. So as mentioned by Architect Farid, I will be representing some of the young and graduate architects for this question. For the first question, it will be for Architect Slamat. I noticed that PAMSo are having this tagline of sustainability is the new norm in each of their webinars now, which I believe that PAMSo wish to share the ideas in ensuring preparation for the survival of its members. So, do you have any insight on this, Architect Slamat?
You mean the so-called how to survive during this period?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, actually, I have no so-called perfect formulas how to survive during this period. But what we have learned during the so-called 85 recession, 97 recession, and 2008 recession, for young professional, in order for them to survive these periods, they have to look more than so-called basic service. They have to look into other supplementary service because at the moment the basic service become very limited, and the architect also facing the problem to deliver so-called the basic service. So you can take part in supplementing the process to carry out this basic service. For example, during this period, because of lockdown, some of the practice, they don't have so-called software or knowledge on the digital. You can provide your service to them, and you can collaborate with them to prepare this of so-called documentation. So that's one way of to getting through this basic service. Sorry, to supplement your income. So for in terms of office operation, you have to see what you need, not what you want. So you have to buy or you have to spend on what you need rather than something that you can so-called get it somewhere else. So in servicing the client, this sort of operation cost can be bring down and will not burden you throughout the recession. And one aspect that so-called you have to keep inside this so-called during this period, you have to keep your key lawyer staff, and this key lawyer staff and so-called they must have a multi-skill and talent. So you don't need a big organization to support your so-called operation.
Okay, thank you for your insight, Architect Slamat. Okay, the next question I will be asking Architect Hong Ling. On the moving forward scenario and vision, how do you foresee the firms market, especially in the southern region, amidst post-COVID-19? Will be there a knight shining armor or surveyor opportunities for the firms?
So the talking about shining armor, and we always like to refer it to this southern region. We want to see the market in southern region. Unfortunately, there is no shining armor that will protect any architects in operation in the whole country. So nobody has that shining armor. It's actually the fittest that survive. In actual case, if you talk about southern region, this current phenomena of COVID, where multimedia plays a very important portion, the situation has brought our competitor closer to us. Previously, assuming and consultants that has to from outstation, they have to travel miles to come to our battleground. Suddenly you realize that actually is no longer needed to travel. They were all based upon multimedia system and then you get to see the client. And I believe on today's forum we have these participants all over Malaysia. You know, so you are able to get access and work together by looking through the screen of the computer. So that is the facts of life, the facts that we are experiencing at the moment. However, you must understand that the whole journey of providing architectural service, it is not about just to draw pretty pictures. Okay, it's not just to draw perspectives, it's just not to draw nicest design. The effort of getting through the design idea to the approving authorities will also play a very important part in realizing the success of a job, and as well as actually the actual work implementation for a project localized in Southern region would also be very important to ensure that the work is implemented properly. So I would say that actually in any time of practice, the architects within the Southern region should capitalize on the logistic and locality advantage versus our competitors. So that is the advice that I can actually give.
Thank you, Architect Ang Hong Ling, for your input. For the next question, I think for info, I actually relatively new in this firm establishment as sole prop. So I formed my firm in early 2020 after pass my part 3 exam. But unfortunately, you know, the COVID-19 hit and continue up until today. So I think the next question will be relevant specifically for the newly established firms, aka young architects and for graduate architects generally. The question is for both speakers, and I will pass that one. The question is, what is your advice to inspiring architect for successful, sustainable, and stable firm? I go for Architect Ang Hong Ling first.
Yeah, this is a good question. It's actually practically explaining the whole journey of what the architect consultancy practice is supposed to go through. So and reflecting to the period that we have been through. So I feel that the priority during the good time or the bad time, these young architect or aspiring architect should take the opportunity to build up a good and positive human resources within the company, because we must understand that the architecture practice, it is not about singular performer, it is actually a team effort. So you need to go through this process, especially during the difficult period, to see the capability and the character of a specific staff. So this is a good period for you to actually build up your own infrastructure and also the human resources within the company. And number two is actually my personal opinion is, regardless during the bad time or the good time, they would have projects. It's just a matter of actually what will be the capacity and the size of the project, as well as actually the quality of the projects. So they would have projects going around. So the thing is actually during this period of time, the beginning aspiring architects should actually take the opportunity and their time, now that Architect Selamat say that we have plenty of time, to build up a good portfolio of projects within the office, and so that actually you will build up the experience in doing specific projects, and which could actually be useful during the good time. So what I'm referring to is actually you may want to not all the projects. The architects are not familiar to all the projects that is supposed to be available in the market. So they are experience that we ought to pick up during the practicing period. So during this period of time, if you could have an opportunity, you ought to ask yourself and ask the operation, what are the area and the niche market that you wanted to concentrate, so that you are able to perform that particular, you attend to that specific area of projects during the normal period of operation. So the last bit which I wanted to highlight is actually aspiring architect are ambitious. They are actually having plenty of energy. but do not forget to be modest in expenditure. Basically, reserve whatever fund that is available, extra fund that is available for the rainy period, because the bad weather can come in anytime. So you may need to actually see what are the fund that is appropriate to be reserved for the operation for the long lasting of the company. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Architect Hong Ling. I think the first point is very much related to the young architects, so that we must strengthen our core team first before we can move forward on this challenging phase. So next, about how about you, Architect Slamet? Do you have any insight on this?
Okay, I believe when I mean this my experience when I so-called set up office in Malaysia, where that time I still working in the main office in Singapore. So I call this when we are small, we don't have a complete set or complete so-called this a team to handle a job. So we have to so-called outsourcing some of the works, so that will not strain our so-called capital. So in this what I call time of pandemic, I think there's quite numbers of young aspirant architect. They can collaborate, meaning each one so-called provide their expertise in the process of delivering the job. Because to deliver the job is not a sprint, it's a marathon event where you not only so-called need a strong so-called this mental, but you also need a strong financial to get the project through. So there's many young aspiring architects in the market. So maybe you can collaborate and divide, and so-called each one can complement each other, and this can so-called reduce your so-called operation cost. And another thing, during this time, okay, of course there's they still have a job, but the quality of the job is some is so-called not some, most of the job is demand or provide a low fees, and this will not attract big organization or so-called it's a foreign architect or people from the KL. So meaning the job is abundant, but you have to source it and establish your reputation with developers or so-called this client. So this type of job can bridge this period, and you can so-called when the economy getting better, you can broaden your so-called this client base. So the job must be in terms of repetitive job, meaning the for example like housing, which is although whether good time or bad time, people still need a housing for them to stay, and this job is more sustainable like those mega job.
Okay, thank you, Architect Slamet, on your opinion and input on that. We'll move on the next question. So I believe that COVID-19 act as a natural destructive mechanism on the system overall and impacted on our profession and ways of running our business. For example, the execution of construction works, meetings, and so on and so forth. Do you see post-COVID-19 will create divided or segmented specialization opportunities on the unified basic services, as you mentioned before, thus emphasizing more the needs of supplementary services, and will create a new norm called gig architecture as a new platform for architecture opportunities? To the question for Architect Slamet.
Okay. Traditionally, most architect practice will concentrate on so-called basic service.
Yes.
This basic service provide so-called prolonged constant income to sustain the practice. But during this so-called almost 2 years, many practice have suffered financially strain because of the operation costs without regular income. So this is where the opportunity for so-called supplementary services to support your operation. To sustain your so-called business, you can create so-called this supplementary and provide this what we call is a gig services provider. For example, like concept designer, illustration, digital provider, working drawing, contract documentation, and managing contract. So if you can so-called this provide this sort of service to the other architect, for example, those architect from Central or from other country, these are the one way of to supplement your income which is affected by this COVID.
Okay, thank you, Architect Slamat. I think this will be my last question for this session. I will pass back to Architect Farid for further webinar session. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect PAMSo. I think tough question, Selamat, from the younger from the younger group. I think this
Architect Farid, some of the questions you probably need a lot of time to read through in order to answer before you answer it.
True. Nowadays they are all very justified, very. So I think it's good for the profession actually. So I think the next question is actually a bit controversial. I think this one actually was passed to me by a senior architect too. It's a bit spicy, yeah. So I think be prepared with it. So next question, please. The slide. Next two questions. So I think this one actually talking about the uniqueness of the JB market, because we perceive most the senior architect perceive Johor market is actually a very good market and very open market, especially in good time. So I think we attracted a lot of quote unquote competitors from other ACP. I mean, a lot of national, ACP, we talk about Southern region, and we talk about Central, we talk about Northern region, actually doing a lot of jobs also in our Southern region, especially in Nusa Jaya in a good time. So I think they have a lot of pressure on the local practice, since we are also consist of a lot of small practice. So like you said earlier, most of the big project, either in Nusa Jaya, in Pengerang, they are not a good balance of between domestic architect, I call it Southern region, and the other section of practice. So I think it comes, this is controversial, it comes to a statement that we are perceived to be like a second-class architecture practice, giving second-class services. So do you have any take on it, Hong Ling?
It's a spicy question, Farid. Yeah, this is only my personal opinion. I feel that actually any healthy and legalized competition is good for the profession. Yeah, so the thing is actually the terminology used by the second-class and second-grade architects are only relative, as well as actually a perception that has been given. Like I said earlier in the discussions or in the sharing, we do as a local architect enjoy the logistic advantage. We also equip throughout the years, from the first generation architect to the second generation architect. Now we have got third and the fourth generation architect. Architect PAMSo will probably be the fourth generation architect that is coming into the market. We have also the localized architects would have also experienced the different typology in terms of buildings and in terms of projects. So I would personally feel that we are equal as compared to architects from outstation. So the only difference is actually some of the mega projects, the client could actually be based in central Malaysia, which is actually in Kuala Lumpur. So that makes the balik our logistic advantage. It becomes that they have the logistic advantage versus us. They are able to meet up with the client, a lot more easier compared to us traveling down from traveling up from Johor. So I felt that actually the phenomenon of having good and this legalized competition, it is actually a good thing to us, and in fact it shows that actually we got plenty of job in Johor. Otherwise, the foreign or outstation architects will not be interested in the projects within this particular region. So this will pose a sufficient opportunity to all the aspiring architects who is actually looking into establishing this operation and their career as an architect in this region. I mean, I started off by saying that I'm originally from Kuala Lumpur, but I choose to base myself in JB. I always use the tagline to my colleague, it's better to swim in a longkang than actually small fish swimming in the big sea. So you meet shark at the big sea lah. So that is the perception that I have. So a statement to the local architects: do not feel afraid. The opportunity will come by. You will be surprised with your logistic advantage. You can go very far in terms of obtaining projects, and we have actually encountered and proven some of the central clients that we are able to perform equally well for projects which is originally deemed to be too big for a small company to undertake. Yeah, the sizes of the office and operation in southern region, undoubtedly it is small. Majority of us are sole proprietor partnership, but that has got to do with a way where offices are formed, because it's actually easier to form a sole proprietor versus corporate companies or even a partnership company. So that may be one area that we can improve ourselves within the southern region, so that we are sizable enough to compete, or rather to perform at par as compared to the architects from outstation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's very assuring. It is spicy, So I think the next question is actually also very relevant, especially when we have next question. Next, this one I think has been answered by Hong Ling. We move to the next question, please. Okay, I think this is also quite relevant. A lot of my session with the senior architect, I did some research first before this seminar to generate the question. So I think COVID-19 suddenly has actually surfaced a very big question about some are ready to pass down the baton to the younger generation. So I think architect, we rarely actually talk about succession in our practice. I think you have a very good partners. You have a very good succession with Architect Slamet. So I think maybe can you share with us how actually this is handled? I mean, it's not easy to actually share with people, especially when we say a lot of sole proprietor. I mean, sole proprietor basically you have it, so maybe Architect Hong Ling, can you share on this?
Yeah, I think for information, Slamet is actually older than me. Yeah. So I think is succession is a sensitive word. It's a sensitive word, and the thing is actually it is a word that all the company or the practices will have to consider sooner or later. So the thing is actually I keep asking myself is actually what is the age that we should take in order to start thinking about this succession. Then I start looking into some of the documentary and some of the books. IMP practices until 90 plus, and I believe he practices until he passed on. So I think it maybe that could be the gauge of how long are we able to practice, but we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to practice that old or not? Are we willing to practice up to that senior? But sometimes it's because not so much of the age, but it's more on the fatigue experience that we have been through throughout this whole period of architecture practice. JYP Architect has got a history of 27 years. We just calculated, because of these sessions, we have to start calculating from 1994 to 2021. So 27 years, not that long, but nevertheless, it's not that short either. We have been among the management of architects, JYP Architects. We have in multiple times discussed about our succession plan. When I tell Slamet that actually I think I want to take a break, he say lagi cepat, I lagi want to take a break because I'm older than you. So that so that is the issue that we have. But since you asked, I believe that actually my personal opinion, this nature of work or our career, being an architect, it is not something that you are, or it's not a profession that you are able to pass your throne to your next generation. You are not able to tell your son, this is the chair, please sit on it. It is not able to work that way on the professional aspect as well as on the practical aspects. So the person who did that is because the person who actually sits on the chair needs to know in particular the ins and outs of the operation of the office. He needs to know ranging from how the paper of the office is being purchased up to the well-being of the staff. Everything he has to be in the know. So the thing is actually also the person must also have good chemistry towards the clientele that we are facing. So it cannot be someone, or it cannot just reserve the chair and pass it to the next generation. So the people we are dealing with at this moment of time, both Architect Slamet and myself dealing with the clients that we are dealing with, they will probably retire when we retire. So it will be a separate set for the successor, separate sets of the personnel that the people would the person that is taking over the operations that will have to meet. So people that we meet now would have retired, and then the successor will have to have the caliber as well as body chemistry to actually get along with whatever clientele that we are serving. So there is no two ways about it. So the architects, or rather, I mean, I must admit that I have got next generation who is wanting to be an architect, but there is no two way about it. He has to learn through the hard way and learn through the proper process in order to build his own career. So in terms of who will be the correct succession taking over the operation, my personal opinion is actually the current human resources that we are building up throughout the years would probably be the one that is the most suitable candidates for us to pick on. Some of the staff or some of the colleagues that we have in the operation has been with us from the very first day since we started operation, and majority of them has got a history of about 25 years with us. So these are the people who know exactly where to go and where should go. So basically they know the ins and outs of the operation. So I feel that this asset that we have, not in terms of money, but in terms of human resources, this asset that we have will probably be the one who actually guarantee us a good succession in the operation. So you may scale down your participation in terms of work implementation, but after you step aside, these are the group of people who has seen through the thick and thin of the operation for the last 25 years or 27 years. That will know exactly how the office should go. So that is basically my take on succession plan. COVID-19 doesn't actually make this particular process and thinking different compared to the rest of the recession. So we felt that actually this issue has to be considered regardless if you are running the operation anyway. So that is my personal opinion. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you. That's very knowledgeable. Slamet, do you extend this question? Do you think it's preferably an outsiders or you groom internally?
Okay, as only mentioned, I'm supposed to retire first than him.
That's why I asked you this question.
Okay, I mean, as only mentioned, the so-called the staff that with us, they know exactly what to do. So, and they have been with us for quite some time. So they have gone through the thin and thicks, running the so-called helping us to running the office. So these are the best candidate in my so-called opinion, which I agree with Mr. Holing, that these are the people who have to so-called recognize their contribution as well as their talent, because this staff has been with us for such time, and what I call this, they have experienced all the process. Rather than we take a new party or new person into the so-called succession plan, where practically whether they suit or they can able to work with our office culture, and they can what I call this have a good so-called relation with the whole staff, because they are newcomer. So my opinion, the so-called the successor must come from in-house personnel that we have groomed, and we have to let them know earlier that they are in the list on the succession, and we have to allow them to mentor them on the other aspect other than architecture practice, such as management of office, financing, what I call this other than what they normally do. So this will help so-called the transition more smoothly, rather than inject a new party or new person inside the organization and shake the whole office to a different way of doing things in the office.
That's true. Okay, all right. Very loyalty plays a lot of importance in the decision. Okay, all right. So I think the next question is now focused on the staff, handling of staff. I think in Johor Bahru, mainly the category of graduate architects or new architects, we are actually mostly belong to the group M40, meaning a salary of 8,000 below. I think the interesting thing that I've been discussing is that the government actually provide a lot of subsidies, a lot of helps and aids for B40 group is basically 4,000 salary below. I think these are the technical TA in the office. So I think architects, ourselves, our group, in the M40 group, actually left with no helps from the subsidies earlier last year. I think this year a little subsidies from the government. So how do you actually in your organization, how do you help all these entry architects, young architects to actually make them loyal to you, stay with you amidst all these challenges? This question is to Ng Hong Ling first.
Yeah, you see M40 and B40, this group is actually the younger generation, the younger generation who has actually has very ambitious, and they are the most volatile group and also most highly mobile. So basically, this is the group of people who felt that actually they always feel that they ought to make more money in order to sustain their lifestyle. So that is the characteristics that I will describe out of this group of people. During the good time, I recall where human resources are not easy to come by, because we are subjected to a very stiff competition from people choosing to work in Singapore. They travel across the causeway and make 3 times the amount of money that we are making, and as well as actually competition from the central Kuala Lumpur. A lot of staff are actually a lot of graduates choose to, within this particular category, choose to go in KL, work in KL with a bigger operation. So I recall that actually we need to approach local and academic institutions like UTM to actually particularly book graduates to come and work for us. So because of this group of people who come to the office and they are highly movable, they will start to hop from one company to another company just by merely maybe a couple of hundreds or maybe $500 increment or salary. They will start jumping from one company to another. So that is very destructive to the nature of our work. So we make a very special effort during each interview that we are conducting on our potential candidates for people who work within this category to explain to the candidates or the future staff on the journey of a project. This is not about like Slamat say, is this building a building or completing a project. It is not a sprint where you complete within maybe 10 seconds. It is actually a marathon. It's a period that you have to go through, and each and every step of the process will gain you different nature of experience. So the thing is, you need to start looking into how a building is designed, taking considerations of the client's input, how the building, how a plan is being approved by the local authority, how construction drawings are being produced, and at the end of the day, all will boil down to how are we going to demonstrate a good human relationship with the contractor so that the building can be built according to your aspiration. So that whole journey of the process is actually important for every architect or every B40 groups or M40 group who is actually aspiring to become a good architect in future. So we will make an extra effort to explain to them that the period, a minimum period of training that is required for them to be attached to the office in order for them to learn the full cycle of construction. So we would tell them point blank, if you're looking into coming here as a transition period of a year, and then thereafter you'll be hopping around to the next company, then it may be a wrong spot for you to be in. So that is actually the positions that we have. We usually encourage anybody who is actually have the intention to join the operation to have a intention to at least be attached to the company for at least 3 years to 5 years in order for you to be able to learn the whole cycle. So as of this, looking after them, I think we felt that actually there is specific market remunerations for this group of people. Basically, they are a market cap as of how much should they be paid and how much, what kind of lifestyle should they be living. So I personally feel that actually they ought to be remunerated through the fair amount of money, so that actually they can have a comfortable and sustainable living. And I would like to add is actually the remuneration, it has to be done in a consistent manner. You know, it is basically is during the good time or the bad time. Everybody has got their plan. Everybody has got their lifestyle. Everybody need to spend the same amount of money, whether it is the good time or the bad time. So the thing is actually you need to promote a consistent payment to the younger generation, because this group of people will probably do not have very much of saving at back. So that is my take. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. I will expand this question to Selamat on any different, Selamat, on whether M40, whether you are local or whether you are overseas graduates, architectural graduates.
I think the so-called is in terms of remuneration, we based on their so-called talent as well as their capability. We did not discriminate whether you are graduated from overseas or you are graduated from a local university. In fact, most of our practice, so-called the staff that we have, they are graduated from local university. Those people who graduate from overseas, they prefer work in the big organization rather than like our so-called our media size of a company. So in terms of so-called remuneration is no different, even though if we engage people from overseas, but they have to prove to us that they can deliver the works.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. Okay, so now we come to the last. Finally, we come to the last question, even though there are so many questions left. This is the last one. I think just to as a conclusion to it, maybe both of you, can you share with us 3 simple wisdom lesson for us to learn from your experience? I start with Architect Hong Ling first.
Okay, three simple wisdom lesson. I feel that actually more of 3 important characteristics of every operations that we need to equip ourselves in facing through the thick and thin of the journey being an architect. So the first item is I would like to say is to maintain a highly positive human resources. That is very important, and this will come throughout the years of practice that you will have. So I add the word positive. You know, you have got a good these human resources, but you need to be actually positive and able to weather through whatever problem that we encounter. So the practicing companies or practicing a good architecture practice will not be enjoying all the good things throughout the whole period. There will be ups and downs. So the word positive will become very important in the characteristics of the human resources that you have. The second item is actually you need to maintain a good portfolio of projects, a good portfolio of building works that you do, and hopefully you are able to identify a specific niche where differentiate yourself compared to other competitors that you have in the market. So that the portfolio of the projects will guarantee you the good process of income. And the last bit, of course, is to spend whatever income that you have during the good time modestly, and make sure that you have sufficient money in the kitty bank to weather you through the bad period. So that is my take, 3 items.
Okay, very thoughtful. I think the difficult one, Architect Hong Ling, is the third one. You know, being modest in spending, especially the younger generation. I think a lot of digital things. So I think that will be very challenging for the younger generation. But anyway, I agree with that. I think most of the time we do not have saving. I mean, we always thought our project will continue forever. Good times will always continue forever. When abrupt challenges, I think a lot of us are actually struggling to find reserve to actually maintain our practice. So I hope the younger generation of architects will be able to learn from some of the good words from Architect Hong Ling. So to you, Architect Slamet, the 3 simple wisdom.
Okay, I think the first one, apart from what Mr. Ng have mentioned, I think one thing, those architects, what I call this, after they graduate, that's his academics. But when they come into the so-called real world of practicing, practically they have to learn all over again. Because, I mean, through the experience, what I call this, when we engage new architects, so-called just graduated or with few years experience, the way they do things is different from what we practice. So as results, it's a learning process. Meaning when they join each organization, they have to learn the culture of how the office operated. So they have to relearn and adjust to the new culture. Second, on the good portfolio of projects, meaning you have to always think your cost of operating the office, and the good portfolio must consist of the project that can sustain the office, whether it's good or bad time. Sometimes we are so-called misleading by taking a big jobs, and apparently the big job die when the economy come down, and it become a strain for us to maintain this type of job. So a good balance must tailor to so-called your operation cost. Third, my opinion is a loyalty. I believe in loyalty because when you loyal to office, you don't keep jumping. The office can so-called they have no much shocks during the operation, because if there's no loyalty, few months after you join, the staff is so-called resign. That's a ripple effect, and they also will demoralize the remaining staff in the office.
All right, that's very good point. I like the part loyalty. I remember when we have a good time, 1994, a lot of especially young architects, they could jump the next day to another firm which offer slightly higher increment only. I think that's a big issue in 1994, where loyalty come a big issue. I think that's very thoughtful. Architect Selamat. So I think that's basically conclude our session on we call it Ask We Anything, AWA, from moderators, myself and Architect MANSo. I think we will definitely would like to open the next session to I think there's a lot of questions from the participant. Then I leave it to the MC to take over. Thank you for both of you, Architect Selamat. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Selamat and Mr. Architect Hong Leng. Okay, before we jump into the question and answer, I would like to showcase the corporate video by JYP and our overall overview regarding our these challenging moments. So bear with us.
I heard that we are all in the same boat. We are sailing in the same storm, but not in the same boat. Your ship could be shipwrecked, and mine might not be, or vice versa. Each of us will emerge in our own way from the storm. We are all on different ships during this storm, experiencing a very different journey. It is very important to see beyond what is seen at first glance, not just looking, actually seeing.
فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا.
Wahai rakyat Malaysia yang saya hormati sekalian, pada hari ini kita semua sedang pun berhadapan dengan situasi yang agak membimbangkan berikutan penularan jangkitan COVID-19.
Coronaviruses. COVID-19.
The complete lockdown.
217 new infections and 3 deaths have been reported today.
Desperate times, desperate measures, sir.
You can't fight the friction.
I have a question, and my question is probably a bit long, but bear with me. Okay, because I'm within the youth age group. So as you know, there are many young architects as well as the graduate architects in the industry currently. They have been suffering from the rise of living costs since the last decade, where the ratio is not in parallel to the wage they earn from the clients or their employers in comparison back to the 80s or the 90s. So with the current pandemic, new issues are adding up. Okay, not just because architecture itself it is a stressful career itself, and plus with the current pandemic, there's a new issues adding up to these groups who are just about to start up in the industry. For example, they have new issues like salary cuts, permanent employment have been turned into contract basis, the loss of job, and leading to mental health problem. So my question is, would you mind if you can share your experience with us when you were both in your youth during the 80s or 90s recession? How did you actually cope with the stress and the mental health issues? And what form of support that you recommend for the employers to provide, or your advice to your current young staff at work? Thank you.
That sounds like a question to the country rather than to the architects. Okay, I'd like to start first, and later Slamet can actually add on with his opinion. Yeah, I agree. I have been repeatedly telling our professional colleagues that our salary, especially to the younger generation who is going into the profession at this moment of time, does not commensurate with the period that we are in, at this moment. So the living expenses has already increased tremendously throughout the years, the last 20 years, where the graduates were 20 years ago, they were withdrawing maybe $3,000 to $5,000 kind of salary, where available houses may be available at the price of less than 500,000. So at 20 years later, the houses price has increased to the range of millions, and the salary do not actually go very far compared to what it is commensurate to whatever price and the living standard that the younger generation expected to live. I think that part of it is more of a national question rather than specifically to the architect per se. So I'll just leave the problem to the Prime Minister to answer. So I would like to attend to the question of contract employment, salary cuts, and also consistency of payments. Just now I've said during the sharing that the psychology as well as actually the mental aspects of the staff are required to be maintained and all the time to be positive. So I use the word consistency. You see, the thing is actually I can't deny that actually salary cut is one of the very fast and effective approach for any management to implement during the slowdown. Converting permanent staff into contract employment, it is another, because of the uncertainty timing where the office do not, or the management of the office do not see that actually the problem is going to be resolved within the next 1 year or two, and all these are actually very effective approach for a management of an office to adopt. However, I would like to describe it as actually an approach that are very painful. So very painful to a certain sense that actually we must understand that everybody has got their own lifestyle. Everybody has got their own planning in terms of income inflow as well as actually expenses, which is outgoing. So the thing is, the nature of a decision made by the management to just swing an axe to the salary may be a fast one. However, it may be a very painful one to the staff. So I am of the opinion that actually this I won't rule it out. It should be the last approach that anybody should take should the office is able to sustain for this moment of time. I hope that answers your question. So this period of time, all the mental of the staff is actually thinking that would they be suffering a pay cut or not? Would they be converting to a contract staff or not? All these are the questions that will affect their psychology point of view. Yeah, thank you. Selamat.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, my opinions actually nowadays when we so-called accept intern come to our office, the first thing I see, they are driving to so-called office rather than take a public transport during our time. So this is a lifestyle rather than you must drive, go to the office. You can take a public transport. I did take public transport when I first commute to works. Okay, and they own a handphone which their parent pay. Okay, so this is what we call is your choice. It's choice that we accept it because we want to be comparable with our colleagues or our peers. So this is practically it's a choice that we choose. So to me, when I got a job, I settled down. At that time, recession happened in 1997. I live in Singapore because I still work in Singapore. Commute to a JB office, and I have to drop my so-called income by 30% because of exchange rate. So how do I manage? I just share my experience. How I manage? I have to lower my expectation. Luckily, when during that time, I have no much commitment. So from the experience that I have gone through, it depends on each individual. So you don't expect the company to be so-called if they're in the loss or in the so-called in the recession to increase your salary. If they can pay you and you can still be sustained by the office, this is very good already. In fact, a lot of practices when recession come, they start retrenching the staff or they have a pay cut. Okay, so if we have this in mind, the retrenchers or the pay cut, we have to prepare ourselves for this so-called the calamity that we're going to face. So it's boiled back to how you you so-called set your lifestyle. So you have a modest so-called expenditure and commitment, and during the bad time, you also can sustain that kind of life. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Architect Ng Holing and Architect Slamat. We take the second question from Raja Nurfarahin. Okay. Hello, Raja Nurfarahin. Maybe can please unmute her. Raja Nurfarahin, are you with us? Okay, you may proceed to ask the question. Sorry, I think she got a little bit problem with her connection. So now I will take the question from the Q&A box. Okay, to the speakers and moderators, a question from Architect Andretta Aziz. She has got two questions. First one, remote learning and practice guidance during the COVID-19 pandemic. Maybe you can share your thoughts on this. And then on the second question, post-pandemic architectural education. Okay, I may leave to Architect Slamat first to answer on these two questions.
Okay, first question, remote learning and?
Remote learning and practice guidance during the COVID-19 pandemic. Is there any tips and thoughts that you can share with us?
Okay, I think the so-called this remote learning, this is a buzzword during this pandemic. You are working or you are studying or practically you have to go through this process. The current situation, everybody have to use digital so-called this transformations. Meaning this one way of we communicate, we work, and we live our life, because the restriction by this COVID not allow us to be freely going out from the house or to other places because of pandemic. I think 2021 and moving forward, this so-called remote learning and practice guidance you have to do through via multimedia or so-called internet. And a second question.
The second question, post-pandemic architectural education. Is there any way that you can share your thoughts on this question?
Post-academic architecture education.
Yeah.
Okay. I think for so-called this building industry, it will not stop. It will not stop. It will continue moving forward. Maybe the type of so-called the building industry will be different from pre-pandemic, because at the moment we can see, because of this pandemics, the need, for example, socialization, entertainment, living, all different, governed by so-called this COVID so-called restriction. So there is a opportunity on this so-called building industry. It will not end, but the requirement will be different from the past. So if anyone want to continue with the architecture education, still there's a market and still there's a demand.
Thank you. Architect Ng Holing, maybe you want to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, on the first question of remote learning and remote practice, I think the COVID COVID-19 situation has shifted the whole paradigm of the practice that we are encountering at the moment, be it whether a student learning to become an architect or the architect is practicing. So we can't stop by have to force to learn the different way of communicating with our client and different way in conducting our work at this moment. So most of it are actually depending very much on multimedia in communication. So the more senior architects will probably have to be forced to learn into this area of expertise. Like this morning, you know, I myself, I won't say that I'm that senior. I myself was kalang kabut trying to get into the system. For whatever reason, they just don't allow me to go in through iPad. So this is an era where the situation has forced the whole profession into go into this the new norm. And I personally feel that actually this new norm will continue as the COVID pandemic is or the COVID problem. It is not going to just submerge or rather disappear within the short period of time. It will be there to last. So for those who is actually learning, I think life has to go on. They have to complete the education, and most of the education will probably have to go through this remote learning. And those who are practicing will need to actually learn the new tactics now, new techniques in communicating. So as of the second question, post-pandemic architecture education, like I say, this method of operating is here to last, and it's going to become the new norm. So I feel that actually the education education in architecture may need to divert a major portion of it into this way of communication. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question, the third question from the chat box here. Okay, the question is: current pandemic crisis is unprecedented, and it requires unprecedented approaches and solutions to weather the crisis. What are your thoughts on post-COVID crisis, on what needs to change for architects? Thinking, rethinking, work processes, business challenges and opportunities, assist the struggling practices in this uncertain, difficult market environment. I think part of it being asked during that session with the moderator. Maybe you can share a little bit more on this.
The post-pandemic, in the first place, we don't know when is it going to be. It's going to take a little bit of time based on the current situations that we have. The thing is actually there is no, personally, I feel that there is no specific this shining shield that is able to guarantee us a success towards the after post-pandemic, that this is going to be the Bible for you to follow, and then thereafter you become successful. So I don't think there is a solution in that manner. So we have to go back to the original or rather old school of mind thinking, where what are the approach that we have to adopt in order to ensure the operation and also the practice to shield through all kinds of recession and to ensure sustainability of the operation. Like I mentioned just now, to keep a good and positive resources, human resources, as well as actually to expand out your portfolio in terms of building typology. And the last bit is actually try not to spend all the money that you have. So just you may need to reserve enough money to cover yourself during the recession period. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. So I take another question from the Q&A chat box from Siti Mariam Muhammad Desa. She said here that I hear statements that architecture is a sunset profession and will be one of the first affected profession come any recession or economic crisis. What is the opinion of the speakers? How can we enrich the profession? Maybe Architect Slamet can in giving his thought on this question.
This is my opinion. I think in our civilizations, since from the building of pyramid until the building of the current buildings, we have gone through what I call this thousands of years. As long as humans required shelter and required a building to do their business, this industry still have demand. It will not end because of COVID. Okay, so the so-called the business will be transformed maybe to a new typology of building, new requirement to so-called suit the market requirement. So I don't think I mean last time when we hit by recessions, the first recession, second recession, we thought the business will be end, but in fact we are come up from the so-called calamity more stronger because we are be prepared to face another calamity. This COVID in our life we never go through, that's why we are not prepared. But still after we can encounter or we can overcome this so-called COVID, the next pandemic, we are well prepared. We are so-called is able to overcome the so-called the situation. So I don't think it's a sunset industry.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to add on this. I agree with Slamat on his point of disagreeing that architecture is a sunset industry. I think we discussed a lot, especially during the multimedia age has actually landed in the world. You know, a lot of the profession, there are a lot of publication about 50 professions that will disappear after a certain period of time, and inclusive lawyers, inclusive medical treatments, and all those things. It could actually be all sought through internet. You can actually get advice for certain contract through the internet. But I personally would like to think otherwise, because I am of the opinion that anything that has got to do with creativity, it will be very difficult for you to replace.
I see.
Yeah, that is a fact, and it requires the human touch, and that will probably differentiate us from machine.
The rest of them.
We requires this creativity touch that completes the whole story. So I felt that there are many countries in the world that has adopted this approach. If you go to Australia, you wanted to build a house for you to stay, you can practically buy the plan and approved straight away through internet, and you can actually buy the plan and build it, you know, without going through an employment of an architect. So a lot of countries has attempted to adopt this arrangement. However, it was proven to be not so successful because after a certain period of time, things get monotonous. There is a lack of creativity in a certain kind. People has got demand in their lifestyle. People has got their demand in different time of their life. So that is the part that requires the creativity of a human being to complete the whole story. So I felt that we are very lucky to a certain extent. Architecture, it is the part that has not science and also not 100% art. So they requires the creativity touch, and I think that we are here to stay. Thank you.
Sorry for that. Okay. So now we move to the next question from David Pei. He asked directly to you, Mr. Architect Ng. So his question is this: during this pandemic, when government offices not full force, when hard copies are still required for official submission and resubmission of plans, many submissions are delayed and jammed. How do you deal with it? You have got your experience on this one during this period of time.
Yeah, we do, and to be honest, we are suffering from that process. The current situations in the authority in the southern region per se, we have got Majelis who has been forced to work with only 20% capacity, and 20% capacity. Some of the staff are actually on rotation manner, so it becomes very difficult for us to communicate with the staff in the process of submission. And we have got a system of OSC where submission is supposedly submitted online, but the that was only limited to the process of this submitting of documents, and also pengagihan is actually only handling, and secretariat in handling documents. So what we faced was actually various authorities has started to impose their own guidelines, like what Architect Slamat have said just now. They impose their own procedures for you to follow. So after you have followed the whole process of electronic submission, you still need to do a hard copy submission. And that hard copy submission, it is a process that you need to make appointment only at a specific timing of the day, timing of the week. Then only you are able to complete the submission. So I personally felt that actually this is an added problem that we face at this moment during the pandemic period, and it is something that we need to actually negotiate. Talk to the authorities in order to facilitate an easier approach on submission. So we do face the problem, similar problem that we face.
So I do believe in any problems, there will always be opportunities for us to improve further. Maybe digital is the answer. Maybe the fully coordinated and involvement from all the stakeholders is the answer to these things. Okay.
Yep.
Then we have another one from anonymous attendee. What is your opinion on the idea of having the government or LAM to determine minimum wages for architects? Do you think it's a good move to impose minimum wages? Architect Slamat, maybe you can give your thoughts on this.
I think in terms of minimum wages, many countries try to implement this so-called minimum wages. As a result, it failed. It's very hard to implement this sort of what called minimum wages. The wages must reflect so-called the business at that moment, because at the moment you can see during this time, if you make a so-called minimum wages, a lot of architect firms will close down.
Okay.
So you have to be flexible and depend on market demand rather than dictate by fixed salary.
Okay. Okay. I think that's about it for this Q&A session. Thank you very much to Architect Slamat and Architect Holing for answering all the questions.